Or is the craziness of the month of March that usually is just extending its way to the sport of hockey? We're going to talk about that because the Arizona Coyotes have won their fourth straight game with a win over the Toronto Maple Leafs. We're going to break it down on today's episode of Locked On Coyotes.
You're Locked On Coyotes, your daily podcast on the Arizona Coyotes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Robyn Leonio. That's Carl Pavlik on this episode of Locked On Coyotes. We want to thank everyone for making Locked On Coyotes your first listen every day. We're freely available on all platforms. But the Arizona Coyotes have won yet another high-scoring game, a 5-4 overtime win over the Toronto Maple Leafs. This is a performance to remember, Carl, because perfect still to start March.
Yeah, and a very unexpected win. I think the both of us called the Coyotes to lose this one by varying margins, but this was very unexpected. Wow. The Coyotes came out to play, and then we got to see a third period collapse, and it was a game, definitely.
But they still go ahead and, they have that collapse, but they go make the overtime game-winning goal, which let's address first and foremost. As much as we are a Coyotes podcast and we're supposed to be pro Coyotes, let's be real, Carl. That shouldn't have counted.
Yeah. Well, let's say this. Referees in general in overtime and late in games do not call every penalty, and that is fair. But replay of that goal showed a clear penalty. There should have been a call. The Coyotes should have been, a man short, but they didn't, and that happens. And it shouldn't have been a thing, but it's fine that it happened, I guess. Like, I don't know there's any way we could change that one.
The Coyotes still came out with the win. Heck, if they lost in overtime, like I think I'd still be talking to us about, yes, they had that third period near collapse, but we'd still be talking about, that this team still being relatively hot, because that would have been another point still, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we wouldn't be talking about 4-game win streak, but we'd be talking a 4-game point streak. Like,
yeah, the first 4-game point streak of the season. So, like, the Coyotes, like, the past couple games have been just like setting season bests and franchise bests with the two crazy games, but also just like in general, this is the hottest the Coyotes have been this season.
I have another crazy stat for you that I retweeted from Luke Lipinski, the intermission guy on the radio. And he said the Arizona Coyotes are 6-3 since announcing that they will be moving to Tempe.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a great stat. I think Cat Silverman tweeted out the Coyotes record since acquiring Nick Ritchie. Like, just in general, like, everything's coming up Millhouse for the Coyotes.
Like, it's just weird because, like, again, like, that we're talking about all these wins when I mentioned in the pregame show at the beginning of the year, we were talking about a 12-game losing streak.
Yeah. But I mean, it's like we talked about. This Coyotes team is very feast or famine. They're either doing really badly or they're doing really well. Like, we need to get the consistency a little bit more, and I think they'll get that in the coming years. But for right now, they're hot, and fans should definitely celebrate that.
Absolutely. I'm looking at the some of the stats here, and we always talked about, either former Coyotes or just Arizona-based connections and how they perform against Coyotes. In this case, two players that are connected to Arizona got a couple points. Michael Bunting with an assist, and Austin Matthews with a goal.
Oh yeah, and that Austin Matthews goal, like he called that goal, like he knew he scored before anyone else did. And it was kind of weird to see the Toronto audience turn on that because it's like you guys should know what the process is. Like they're down the street from you, they'll call it eventually.
Exactly. And I think we saw it coming too. We're just like, I think that should have been a goal, but let's see what happens if they don't sound the horn.
I mean,
Don't stop the play,
the
but
the Maple Leafs were pushing, and the Coyotes, like it felt like it was only a matter of time. Like that third period collapse was like you could feel it coming.
yeah, which is interesting because we talk about third period collapses maybe once in a while, but it's usually second period collapse.
Yeah.
And obviously that attributes to a loss, and this wasn't a loss, so I guess it doesn't count.
Yeah. I mean, I will say like there was it was a collapse against Buffalo earlier this season, except for it didn't show like a lot of goals because the Buffalo Sabres just weren't able to score. The Coyotes still collapsed. Like the collapse is on the Coyotes end. It's not on the other end.
One more former Coyote prospect, I should say, made an appearance in this game against the Coyotes for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and that is the backup goaltender, the emergency backup goaltender, Eric Shalgren. He was
Yes.
former Rapid City Rush occasionally, and then played like 2 games in Tucson.
So I tweeted this out. The Coyotes have chased 3 goaltenders in their past 2 games. How does that happen?
That's just funny.
Yes.
One more thing too that I absolutely love though is on the other side, a former Maple Leaf has a 2-point game. He only played for like really short period, but Alex Galchenyuk.
Yeah, Galchenyuk. Yes, I really liked his goal. Like I thought that was like really solid. I'd forgotten about the assist. It was a good night for former Maple Leafs because Kessel also had an assist.
The setup was that Fisher's bar down goal?
No, that was Kraus and Michelli. Kessel's was Travis Boyd's.
Okay, that's when it was. Okay.
Yeah. Or no. Apologies. I was reading that incorrectly. Kessel's was the Jacob Chikrin. Keller's was Travis Boyd.
There you go.
Yeah. And then Nash also had one. He is a former Maple Leaf, as we said. Really good night for former Maple Leafs, like just in general.
Just all over the place, and you mentioned in the pregame show just how much of former of each side that this game was supposed to be, and it's just like, oh, look at that.
Yeah, it was weird because we talked about like, hey, this is what these teams have been like trending, and then when it came to predictions, we're like, maybe those like trends come to an end, but no, the trends kept continuing. Like this was a high offense game that we maybe overthought in the preview.
And I think the thing is because we were looking at the last 2 games and we're like, okay, for the last 2 games we're against not so good teams.
Yeah.
Maple Leafs are a better team, and we're like, yeah, they had that game against Buffalo, but did they make that same mistake again?
Yeah.
And it seems like we were in agreement that they wouldn't. We were like, oh no, the Maple Leafs, they're a good team. They shouldn't make that same mistake. And we know how the Coyotes are. They're a rebuilding team. We don't think it's going to happen, but it did.
Yeah. We gave the Maple Leafs too much credit, it turns out. I think that's kind of the best way to say. Like, this should not have been, like, a game where they came out like flat-footed, and they really did, because like the Coyotes went up 3-1 and then 4-1, and it took 3 goals in the third period for the Maple Leafs to come back. Like, this is like from start to finish a failure for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Absolutely. We still got more to get to, though, on this episode of Locked On Coyotes. We're going to go more in depth of how this game went down, how the Arizona Coyotes were able to come up with the overtime win over the Toronto Maple Leafs, remaining perfect in the month of March. All that coming up and a little bit more on this episode of Locked On Coyotes. But first, a quick word from Carl.
So I have a message from our friends at Built Bar, and that's, have you tried the Puffs? If not, you're missing out on one of the best tasting Built Bar flavors. The Puffs are the first ever protein infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy, they're not just a protein bar, they're a treat. And they're covered in 100% real chocolate. The Puffs are a fan favorite with some incredible flavors. They have the yummy cinnamony churro puffs, the coconut marshmallow, my favorite, the banana cream pie. They're all so good. You're going to find one that you love the best. And like I said, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. What I want you to do is go to built.com and use the promo code LOCK15 for 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com.
So, back here on Locked On Coyotes as we discuss the Arizona Coyotes 5-4 overtime win over the Toronto Maple Leafs. And one thing I will address is in terms of another stat, and this is a betting stat, Carl, because the over-under was one of the higher ones that we've ever seen for a game at 6.5, and both of us were like, yeah, it can go over, but we're going to both pick the under on this game.
Yeah.
And again, we were wrong.
Yeah, we really were. Like, and I mean, I don't know about you, but I could tell right away. Like, when Galchenyuk scored like just over 2 minutes into the game, I'm like, this one's gonna turn out differently than we thought.
Yeah, I definitely felt that too, and especially like once it got to a certain score, I'm just like, part of me was thinking when it got to 4-2, I was like, hold it, Coyotes, just hold it right there, and we'll be fine. There shouldn't be any worries after that. It should be fine.
I mean, let's be honest. When it got 4-2, I was like, oh, the Maple Leafs are coming back. The Coyotes are not going to be able to hold it. It felt, I could feel the collapse coming early on. I've seen enough of them. It's like earthquakes. You could just kind of sense it.
Yeah, but you can only hope, right? You can only
Yeah.
hope that your betting trends can be correct.
Yeah, because just like for so long it looked like, okay, the Coyotes came out early, caught the Maple Leafs flat-footed. Maybe they could just take control of this game, like just play really well defensively, but they couldn't. Like, they let the Leafs come back. And that's not necessarily like a bad thing. The Maple Leafs are a good team. There's a reason we both picked the Maple Leafs to win the game. Like, it's definitely a steal for the Coyotes.
Absolutely. I'm looking at some of the stuff from Natural Stat Trick now, though, and this is another thing I'm just like thinking, how did the Coyotes manage to come out with the win on this one? Because possession metrics is all Toronto,
Yeah.
right? Like, are you taking a look at the Corsi right now? Like, oh my God, 82-38 Corsi in favor of the Toronto Maple Leafs, 39-27 shots.
I mean, what? The Galchenyuk goal was luck. Like, the Coyotes got a lot of luck this game. I
Yes,
think
they did.
which one? The Boyd, I think, also was pretty heavy luck. I need to go back and watch all the goals. We're recording this right after, but the Coyotes definitely got their share of lucky bounces tonight, and those are bounces that the Coyotes have missed like earlier this season. Like, it's all kind of leveling out, and they definitely stole this one and swept the Maple Leafs because yeah.
What's absolutely funny is that what I'm thinking about is we're recording this shortly after the latest power rankings came out for our Locked On network, and the Coyotes moved down a spot back into 32, and they've won 4 games straight. You're just like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, and they have won 4 games straight in ways that you would not expect the Coyotes to win. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm suddenly very kind of excited for next year because maybe this offense is going to be consistent. Maybe the Bear system is like a really good system for the Coyotes.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And that's the thing is like at first we were skeptical because this was a completely new system. No one knew how to play it, and that's why they were losing so many games. And again, this team's gonna lose more games.
Yeah,
That's just a reality of a rebuilding team. But this stretch right now is a perfect example that they're starting to fit into the system, and that the system works for the group of players that they currently have right now. Unfortunately, not everyone's going to stick around.
yeah,
Again, it's a rebuilding year, so you're still going to have some people leave, some people go out, new people come in, and people are going to have to readjust. But when you have, if you at least if the Coyotes have their core group together to build that, to go through that system and understand it, it seems like right now that's working.
yeah. I said it on yesterday's episode. The Coyotes, I predict, are going to have a 7-game losing streak now between now and the end of the year, and I still think that's going to be the case. Like, they're high now, they're going to come down because that's just the team, but they are, you know, developing the right habits and they're getting the right bounces right now. Like, and you can see that this is a team that still has a lot that they need to work on and they need to address like a lot of deficits, but like the pieces are kind of there in the early stages. Like, they can grow, hopefully, as long as things are done correctly. And we're really early, but you know, have faith because it seems to be working out.
Plus, again, you're still waiting on a few players to come in from the prospect pool who still have yet to make their way through that look promising as well. Those players are going to make a big impact in the years to come for the Coyotes, as well as again drafting. You make good draft picks. You can find some more defensemen to kind of help fit into that because I think that's maybe one that's still you still got to work on a little bit, but they're finding those pieces and
Yeah,
they put it together. This team a few years from now is going to be an exciting team to watch.
yeah. And I mean, at one moment, I saw Dyson Mayo make a really good defensive play on Michael Bunting. And that just kind of showed, along with everything else that's happened this season, that the Coyotes also have a much stronger AHL base than they have ever had before. Like, that system is really good, and they're not necessarily going to get all the players from the Tucson Roadrunners. Like, some of them are going to end up signing with other teams, and of course that's going to happen. But they are developing a really strong pipeline, and I've seen a Coyotes rebuild before, and it wasn't like this. Like, everything seems to be in place.
I mean, again, look at the players who have contributed in just this year of coming up from the AHL in Matthias Maccelli, in blanking on Dyson Mayo, and those and there's still a few that are just
I mean, JJ Mosier
JJ Mosier,
also,
yes.
yeah,
And you're gonna just keep seeing these, right? And that's what's awesome. And a bunch of hat tips to Jay Verde for being an amazing part of that program because. Again, everyone knows I cover the Tucson Roadrunners, and I've got a chance to see that even in the past. From previous teams, and Connor Garland, and how quickly he rose to prominence, and became a pretty fun figure to watch in the NHL.
yeah. It's funny. Like, we talked about, like, Prosvetov, make sure he stays down there. and it's almost like a monkey paw wish because like Prosperov is staying in the AHL with the Roadrunners. It's just everyone else, like the entire blue line is like half Roadrunners now. Like they're just drawing like everyone but him, and
which sucks because now the Roadrunners have a pretty it seems like right now they have almost no chance to make it into the Calder Cup playoffs. But
yeah,
you know,
there was definitely, I think, a talent suck earlier than we expected. But I mean, credit to the Roadrunners staff, and I don't think anyone is going to blame them for how their season goes. They did their job. They developed players the right way. Like the number of Coyotes making their NHL debut this season is a testament to the entire Roadrunners organization.
not just making NHL debuts, but getting their first NHL point and their first NHL goal, all within a few games.
Yeah, yeah. It's just I neither of us really expected like this kind of like development of these players. It's been a lot of fun to watch. Like there's been a lot of fun stories this year for the Coyotes.
Absolutely, there has been. We still got more to get to, though, on this episode of Locked On Coyotes. We're going to talk about what's coming up for them, make some predictions on their weekend game as the Arizona Coyotes get ready to face the Boston Bruins. We're going to break those predictions in just a moment. But first, I want to tell everybody that it's that time of year again as college basketball's tournament is finally upon us. From all the latest odds, contests, and player props, BetOnline.net is the number one source for all your sports betting needs and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline has your continued source for all sporting wagering information needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. Head to the website, use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. So let's finish things off here with our picks of the game. We do not have our Bet Online odds available because it is early still.
Yep.
Way too early for those to be available, but because the games are not until later in the weekend. So we have to wait for those. But doesn't mean we can't make predictions, Carl, on how this
Yeah.
game might go. Like it can kind of, and as I've said before, it can give you roughly an idea of based on the kind of predictions that we're going to make to what you can apply towards your betting trends should you decide to bet.
Yeah, because neither of these teams is going to be playing tomorrow or today when you're listening. So it's not like anything that we talk about is going to be changing unless, say, like an injured player. In which case, of course, you can make those alterations to your mental math as you need to.
Absolutely. It's pretty fun to do these kind of things, even even without the odds. So let's try to go ahead and make these predictions. So the Arizona Coyotes up against the Boston Bruins, both teams having won their most recent game. It looks like the Boston Bruins, I believe, was a pretty high scoring win on their one as well. So let's assume like roughly the 5 to 6 areas where an over under would be.
Yeah.
How many? Let's put it this way. Around how many points do you think is going to be scored this weekend?
I think it's definitely like let's go with what we had before. So for this game, it was 6.5. I think there's going to be more than 6.5 goals. Like the Bruins have been scoring a lot. The Coyotes have been scoring a lot. Like I was burned once thinking that the offense is going to dry up. For now, I'm going to say like let it ride. Let's see what they can do because obviously these like the Coyotes got lucky today, but they've also like shown skill before. So if they can do it all, then they'll score goals.
They will score goals. I think it'll be fun, and that part will make it fun. And again, it's the month of March, and as anyone knows who's a sports fan, March is a weird time of year
Yeah.
where anything can happen.
Yeah, And it's definitely been like a wild start to the year for the Coyotes. Or start to the month. I did not think the Coyotes would be having a 4-game win streak that included wins against the Colorado Avalanche and the Toronto Maple Leafs.
And 2 8-goal games as well fit into there as the other 2 games. Like,
Yeah. 2 8+ goal games, and just in general, like a 5-goal game against the Maple Leafs where they chased the goaltender, like that's also pretty astonishing.
it really, really is. So I'm with you. I think this one would be in an example of another game where you can easily pick the over, no matter what the line is, unless the line is like 7.5, and you're just like,
Yeah.
that's a little dangerous. It's never that high. If it's that high, bet the under.
Yeah, if it's 7.5 and it's a Coyotes game,
Bet the under. Just do it. It's like I don't care what the trends have been, but the last 2 games have been way over that. Just don't do it.
yeah, no, maybe like look around, see if you can find some children's books about bears. Make sure you're in the right universe. Like it's never gonna happen, but yeah, I think in general, like betting the over for these two teams is pretty good. Now, the big question, do you think the Coyotes can beat the Bruins?
I think the Bruins are a better team than the Maple Leafs are. And I think the Coyotes can only have so much luck with them. It's just, to me, I just can't see them come up with another crazy win like this. Which is why, if I were to put a final score on this one too, I'm going to say this one is going to be a 5-3 Bruins win.
Interesting. I agree with you that the Bruins are probably a better team than the Toronto Maple Leafs. However, I think they're going to underestimate the Coyotes because I'm looking at some of their losses. They lost to the Ducks, they lost to the Kings. Those are not like terrible teams, but still like games where I think the Bruins probably should have pulled out a win. I'm going 4-3 Coyotes.
4-3 Coyotes. So you are predicting for them to go 5.
Yes. I think it's going to be like one of those series that we look back on. And for right now, I'm thinking, like, I'm just going to ride the hype train. Like, hype train it up for me, baby.
We got to do something for the show. If the Coyotes can get to a certain amount of wins in a row, we just do something crazy on this show.
We should, yeah. Although, like, I would have thought 3 was crazy.
Well, yeah, but we're thinking out of this world crazy. These things seems like, oh yeah, outliers. It happens, but
I mean, honestly, before this month, I thought 3-game win streak would have been out of this world crazy. Like the Coyotes
fair,
have just had so many
fair.
consistency problems, and they're not like they have given up like they've given up 5 unanswered goals against the Ottawa Senators. They gave up 3 unanswered goals against the Toronto Maple Leafs. They're not winning these games like cleanly. They are definitely just finding ways to overcome collapses, and that's really all you can ask for.
A punch in the mouth offense from the Arizona Coyotes.
Yeah. And I mean, almost a sucker punch in the mouth offense because these teams are not expecting it.
Oh, not one bit, and it's making it a lot more fun to watch. If they can pull it off on Saturday, I will definitely start coming up with things if they can do any more than that.
Yeah. Because I mean, if they can do that, The next game is against the Ottawa Senators. The one after that, the Montreal Canadiens. Like, if the Coyotes can survive this weekend with the win streak intact, who knows what happens?
Yeah. Before, anyways, though, I know we're running out of time here, but one thing that I didn't mention from the whole Maple Leafs thing that I totally forgot about, Carl, that I want to mention now before we close things off. To the Toronto fans out there, you just got swept by the Arizona Coyotes.
Yep. The Coyotes have swept 2 of the original 6 teams because they swept the Detroit Red Wings Tuesday, the Maple Leafs. It's a sight to behold.
Oh, it's a beautiful thing right now. It is a beautiful, beautiful thing.
It absolutely is. Absolutely.
Anyways, though, we're going to wrap things up on this episode of Locked On Coyotes. If you like what you heard, don't forget to leave a review, like, comment, subscribe if yet you're ready. We're available everywhere you get your podcasts, including on YouTube. Don't forget to interact with us on social media. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/LockedOnCoyotes, on Instagram at LockedOnCoyotes, on Twitter at LO_Coyotes. I am personally at Robyn_Leonio. Carl Pavlik is Carl Pavlik FFH. Interact with us, ask a question you might have. We can answer them right back or on a future episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. Thanks again, everyone, for listening to today's episode. Hope you guys are staying safe out there. Hope you guys are staying healthy. And don't forget to howl on.